is we're going to create a color wheel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up my artboard in a square shape. So I'm going to do 8 inches by 8 inches. And it doesn't matter what the orientation is because it's going to be the same from top to bottom. I'll go ahead and create. So now I've got a nice square artboard. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to, under my shapes tools, I'm going to grab my polygon tool. And I'm going to go to the very center of my artboard, and you'll know you're in the center because it will say center when you're in the center. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold shift and then I'm going to draw this polygon to fill in this artboard here that I've drawn. Okay, and now that I've got that drawn, I'm going to go ahead and grab my line segment tool. So with the line segment tool, it only draws what is in the stroke. So right now my stroke is black, so that's going to be the only color that shows up in there. So with this line segment tool, so I'm going to go to this anchor point, cut across through the center to this other anchor point, and I'll go from this anchor point here on the right, come down to the left, and then I'm going to draw one that goes right through the center from that anchor point over there to this anchor point over here. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select everything that I've just drawn, and I'm going to use my Pathfinder tool. So if you can't find your Pathfinder tool, look under Window, open up the Pathfinder tool. Okay, so with my Pathfinder tool, what I'm now going to do is I'm going to divide those shapes. So once I divide it, I need to ungroup it. So there's two ways you can do that. You can either go under Object Ungroup, or you can right click and ungroup the shape. So once you ungroup it, this will all be different segments of the shape. Now of course we don't want to move them, we want to leave them where they are. So what we're going to do now is we're going to create some variations with these shapes. So I'm going to start with this first rectangle here. So I'll go ahead and select that with my selection tool, and I'm going to go ahead and copy it by hitting Control C, and then I want to paste it directly on top. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Control F. Okay, so now that I've got that copy on top, what I want to do is I want to take my direct selection tool. I'm going to click on this anchor point here on the far left, and then I'm going to hold shift to click on this anchor point on the far right. So you'll notice that here at the bottom, this anchor point is hollow. This one is dark blue and that one's dark blue. So that's going to be important. So make sure that you only have these top two anchor points selected for this next step. Otherwise, it's not going to work correctly. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go to Object, Transform, and Scale. And we're going to scale this down, we'll say 85%. Okay, so you'll notice that the sides move, but not the bottom here. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my selection tool, I'm going to select that shape that I just made. I'm going to copy it by hitting Control C, Control F to paste it. And I'm going to essentially do the same thing that I did previously. So with my direct selection tool, I'm going to click on this anchor point on the far left, click on this anchor point on the far right, and you can go to Object, Transform, and Scale, or you can right click, Transform, and Scale. Either way, it'll do the same job. And I think maybe this time I want to scale this down a little bit more, because I didn't think it scaled it down quite as much as I wanted it to. So I'll go 75%. And now I'm going to maybe go ahead and copy this shape that I drew. So I'm going to use my selection tool, click on that shape, Control C to copy, Control F to paste it right on top. I'm going to take my direct selection tool, click on this anchor point on the left side, hold shift, click on this anchor point, so then just these two outer anchor points, not this one in the middle, are selected. And then I'm going to scale it down again. So this time I will scale it just by right clicking, Transform, Scale, and maybe I'll scale this one to 45%. Okay, so we'll go ahead and call that good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to color these triangle shapes that we've made. So let's start by just filling in the color that I want. And since we're going to make this a color wheel, I'm just going to start with yellow. and I'm going to use yellow as my fill color. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is we're going to use this color guide chart. So if you can't find the color guide chart, look under Window, find color guide. Okay, so once you've got the color guide, what we're going to do is we're going to click on this little arrow, and we're going to scroll down till you find monochromatic. Okay, because we're going to work with a monochromatic color scheme. So monochromatic means one color. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take this one color and we're going to create variations going from dark to light. Okay, so I'm going to click on the next triangle with my selection tool, and then I'm going to use the next shade lighter. Then I'll click on the third one, use the next shade lighter, and then finally this last one, I will use the lightest shade. Okay, so now what we're going to do is essentially the same exact thing, but in this other square. So now I'm going to copy this square by hitting Control C. Actually, it's really a triangle. Control F to paste it. Then I'm going to take my direct selection tool, grab this anchor point, hold Shift, grab that anchor point, so I only have these two, not the one in the middle selected. And now we're going to scale it down. So you can right click, transform scale, and maybe I'll scale this. Let's go 80%. Okay, and now I'm going to take my selection tool, select this shape, copy it by hitting Control C, then Control F to paste it on top. Then I'm going to take my direct selection tool, click on that outer anchor point, hold Shift, click on this outer anchor point so that those two, not the one in the center, are selected. And this time I'll just go under Object, but we could right click to scale it down too. Either way, it'll work fine. Say 75%. It's probably good. Okay, so we're going to do this one more time. So with my selection tool, I can select this shape, Control C to copy, Control F to paste it on top. Take my direct selection tool, click on this outer anchor point, hold Shift on my keyboard, click on that anchor point, and scale it down. So we can right click, transform scale. And let's go 45%. I'll go OK. Alright, so now we're going to make this color. So I'm going to take my selection tool. I'm going to click on that first triangle, and we're going to make this orange. Okay, so using this color guide that we used previously, we're going to alternate the color so it gets lighter as it moves towards the center. Okay, so I'm going to move on, and I'm going to do the same exact thing that I did with the first two triangles on these next ones. Okay. Okay, so for this one, we're going to make it red so we can keep in sync with our color wheel. So I'll click red, click on the next triangle, go to the next shade down, click on the next one, next shade lighter, and then finally the lightest shade. Okay, so move on to the next one, do the same exact thing that we've done with the previous three. Okay, so with my selection tool, we'll go to the next color in the color wheel, which will be purple. So, okay, so we're going to make this the next color in the color wheel spectrum, which will be blue. Okay, so in this last square, we're going to make the color green to be the colors of the color wheel. So now that we have all of the colors in our color wheel, we're going to select everything and we're going to remove the stroke. So we'll bring this stroke square up to the front, and then we'll click on this white square with the red bar. It means no color, which will remove the outline. But now what we're going to do is we're going to blend these colors using a new tool. So I'm going to take my selection tool. If you click on that first triangle, hold Shift, you can click on the rest of the triangles in the sequence to select them all one at a time. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go under Object, we're going to go to Blend, and we're going to go Make. And so it's going to blend those variations to get a nice smooth gradation. Okay, so maybe I'll just take my selection tool and drag this box over. So I select just the ones in this orange spectrum. And we're going to do the same thing we did previously. So we'll go under Object, Blend, and Make. To blend those values together, we'll go to the next one, select those. Go up. We are almost complete with this color wheel. So the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my ellipse tool and I'm going to draw a circle over my polygon, making sure that the circle doesn't go outside the edges of the polygon. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to select everything. So with my selection tool, I'll grab my box and click and drag so that everything is selected. And then we're going to go under Object, and we're going to go to Clipping Mask and Make. So everything that is outside of that circle shape is going to disappear. It's still there, we just can't see it anymore. Okay, and now we are finished with our color wheel.